Hey nerds, and welcome to Supergirl, Theories and Conspiracies. I'm your host Brian from Good Nerd Bad Nerd. This week on Supergirl, we had a pretty standard Season 1 episode where she's learning how to use her powers, she's building her team, and she's kind of solidifying who she is and what we can expect throughout the series. But the most interesting things that happened are some of the things that were just really, really quick or off comments or were only on screen for a few seconds. But before we get to those things, first we need to talk about the villain of the week. And the interesting thing about this character is this was the Helgramite. In the comics, Helgramite is actually just a single character. For the show, they've taken him and created an entire race of aliens. In the comics, the Helgramite is actually named Roderick Rose, and he's basically a scientist who transformed himself into a giant grasshopper-like creature. So he is an insect-like creature, that they got right. He doesn't have the ability to kind of change his appearance or things like that, but that is where this character comes from. So Helgramite in the comic, single guy, not an alien that happened to get imprisoned in the Phantom Zone. So moving on, General Astra. We did get confirmation that this is Supergirl's aunt. They were twins, not a clone. I was a little disappointed with how quickly Kara just kind of immediately knew it was the aunt. I was hoping for a little play on that, but at the same time, I'm glad they just got that over with. We know the aunt is there. Kara knows the aunt's there. We can prepare for that character and what that will mean. But the interesting thing here is, who is Astra's boss? Now, the obvious answer would be General Zod, who everyone remembers from the film. But it'll be interesting to see if they go with Zod or if there's another big bad Kryptonian coming down the story, and who that would be. Other possibilities, if they go with the more Bruce Timm animated Brainiac, is that it could be some version of Brainiac as the Kryptonian computer. But General Zod is most likely who that will be. Now that takes us to the really big thing that was dropped in this episode, and that is the character of Maxwell Lord. He was the guy in the beginning of the show who was on the news talking about how we don't want Supergirl in this town, it's going to just bring trouble. Superman in Metropolis has brought nothing but trouble. And so that's who that character is. Now in the comics, he's got a really kind of a complicated origin that's been retconned a few times. It has to do with like a sentient evil computer that was controlling him and all this stuff. The main thing about it is that he's essentially an amoral businessman. He's ruthless, he's cunning, and he's willing to do whatever he wants. It should be noted that he helped to create the Justice League International, and that was part of, again, confusing backstory, either his plan or the villainous computer's plan to have Maxwell take over the world by using the Justice League International. So he's got a lot of ties there. The two most interesting things about him from the comic, well, I guess three. He eventually does gain powers as a metahuman. During a gene bomb that went off, he had a latent metahuman gene that was activated, and it gave him kind of mental abilities, mind control, things like that. And that came into play later on when he was instrumental in a lot of really terrible things. He shot Ted Kord, who was the second Blue Beetle. He shot him in the head. And then later on, he was mind-controlling Superman. And while Wonder Woman and Superman were battling, Wonder Woman managed to get Maxwell Lord with the lasso of truth, asking how to free Superman from his control. The answer, which Maxwell Lord was compelled to give to be true, was to kill him. So Superman is freed when Wonder Woman snaps his neck, something that was filmed and released and went on to cause more trouble. But so Maxwell Lord is a very complicated character, and it'll be very cool to see how he gets played out through this show. It's very likely that he will become a very big threat to Supergirl. Most likely not this season. My bet is on season 2. He will become a big, kind of the overarching villain. But that takes us to Hank Henshaw, the director of the DEO. We talked last week about how in the comics he is Cyborg Superman, and I'm pretty sure that was all but confirmed this week. There was a reference to his family that has died, and then that eye glow at the end. Clearly he is not who he claims to be, in the regard that he's just a normal human. And I think it's pretty obvious they are going the route of Cyborg Superman. Now it's interesting, they won't call him that most likely. It's very obvious that the show is doing everything it can to distance itself from saying the actual name Superman. They've said Lois Lane, they've said Clark Kent, they've said Daily Planet, but you haven't heard them say Superman. So I'm not sure what they will call him, but he is definitely going to resemble the Cyborg Superman we see in the comics. What did you guys think of the episode? I'm loving all these little things they're dropping. It definitely is connecting to the larger world. One other thing they dropped, there was a security breach in Sector 52 of that chemical plant. 52, like it was dropped in Flash, is a reference to the new 52. In Flash, they had the 52 breaches in reality. Here, it's Sector 52. So that's going to be a number I think you're going to be hearing a lot in all the different DC shows, just because it's like a lot of people will pick 42 as the answer or whatever. But tell me what you guys thought. Tell me what you think about Maxwell Lord or Hank Henshaw. And finally, who do you think General Astra's boss is? Do you think it's Zod or do you think it's somebody else? So until next week, this has been Brian from Good Nerd, Bad Nerd, and this has been Supergirl, Theories and Conspiracies.